While nearing or in port, the work of the crew was chaotic and stressful. When the ship was out at sea, things were usually a bit calmer. When at sea, though, the bridge of an ocean liner has to be manned at all times. The ship is on the move all day and all night, and close attention to navigation was even more critical in the darkness of night. An ocean liner never sleeps, which necessitates that her officers keep odd hours. On most ships, there were 5 4-hour watches and 2 2-hour watches, for a total of 24 hours. The first watch usually starts at 2000, otherwise known as 8 p.m. A typical watch schedule could be as follows. First watch, 2000 to midnight. Middle watch, midnight to 0400. Morning watch, 0400 to 0800. Forenoon watch, 0800 to noon. Afternoon watch, noon to 1600. Then came the so-called dog watches. First dog watch, 1600 to 1800. Second dog watch, 1800 to 2000. Each watch included at least 2 officers, one being junior and one being senior. Usually, the third officer and anyone below was considered a junior officer, while the second officer and above were usually considered to be the senior officers. This distinction is important because senior officers stood the same watches each day while junior officers rotated. To use Titanic as a convenient example, the chief officer, Henry Wilde, stood the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. watches. The first officer, William Murdoch, stood the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. watches. And the second officer, Charles Lightoller, stood the 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and the 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. watches. You get the idea. The senior officer was referred to as the officer of the watch, and he was responsible for navigation as well as checking that the proper lights were aglow. He would also monitor the ship's heading as well as barometer pressure and sea temperature. Finally, he referred to the sun and the stars to ensure proper navigation. With the junior and senior officers would be the quartermaster who manned the helm and tediously kept the ship on course according to the compass. When things were quiet on the bridge, one of the officers would do deck rounds, checking rigging, lights, other equipment, and the state of maintenance. To keep track of all this, the ship's bell was rung every 30 minutes. The number of rings at a given time was between 1 and 8 and adhered to a rigid schedule. For example, at 1500, the bell would be rung 6 times, at 1530, 7 times, at 1600, 8 times, and then at 1630, back to 1 time. The ringing of the bell was important because the watch schedule also included able seamen, who, as opposed to the officers on the bridge, would not necessarily have immediate access to a clock. Depending on the watch and the particular needs of the ship at the time, the able seamen might have been scrubbing the decks, painting, or shining brass, and would have needed a cue to remember the time.